Okay, we're going to continue with lesson one. Looking at another example here. We're going to look at continuing to simplify radicals using the two methods I showed you in the previous video. So we're going to write this in simplest radical form. This isn't a tough one. The square root and the squared cancel. And I am left with 7. What about this one? Going in a variable now. Well, the square root and the squared still cancel, and I'm left with x. That's the next step. We're going to start using variables in these as well. So square root of 81, x to the 5th. Well, let's look at the 81. Hopefully you see that as 9 squared. X to the 5th I can break down to x squared times x squared times x. That's 5 x's broken up into pairs as much as possible. So let's break those apart now and start canceling the squareds and the square root. So that gives me a 9. X squared, square root of that gives me an x. I get another x. Now the square root of x doesn't have a squared on it, so it can't simplify. It stays inside the radical. And now I just multiply things together on the outside, and that's my answer. So 9 times x is 9x squared, radical x. Let's take a look at another one. I'm going to write this one in simplest radical form. Now you notice that 8 on the outside. I'm not breaking that down. That's already on the outside. I don't need to break it down any further. I only need to break down what's inside the radical. So I'm going to break that down. 18 is 9 times 2. And then x to the 3rd is x squared. Again, I need a pair. And then a leftover x. So that's 3 x's broken into its pairs. Well, 9 is 3 squared. Square root of 2, square root of x squared, and the square root of x. So the square root of 3 squared is 3. The square root of 2 doesn't simplify, so it's just square root of 2. The square root of x squared is x on the outside. Notice where I put it. And then the square root of x stays inside the radical. Now there's stuff left on the outside and on the inside. We want to multiply everything together. So 8 times 3 is 24, x. And then the square root of 2 times the square root of x is the square root of 2x. It's as far as I can go with that one, and that is the simplest radical form of that original problem. Okay, that concludes lesson one. If you want to use the factor tree like I did here, you can. If you want to find the biggest perfect square, you can do that as well. So if you have questions, please send me a message if that was confusing, because this is a huge thing that you're going to have to be able to do to move forward with this unit.